Hey everybody, Coach Abel here, and I've been getting a lot of requests to do follow-up stuff that relates to why and how people tend to fail at your transformation efforts to lose weight or develop your body, your physique, your figure, whatever. So in this webinar, short little webinar, I'm going to talk about gut reactions to your transformation efforts that lead to self-sabotage. So notice two words here, gut reactions and reactions. So this is an important topic that doesn't get fair play in terms of discussing why and how people tend to fail. So the question right now that I'm going to ask you, have you failed and flailed at weight loss attempts before? And if yes, then which one of these emotional presets best describes why? And I'm going to go through them here briefly below. But the emotional presets, the reactive process to why and how people tend to fail at weight loss and physique transformation efforts, the emotional presets to sabotaging your process are this: fight, flight, or freeze. So think of that in terms of how and why you tend to have failed in previous attempts at weight loss, or you've just sort of been stagnant. You get a little bit and then you go backwards, and then you make a little progress, and then you stagnate, and then it all begins again. So which one of these, fight, flight, or freeze, best represents your past attempts? And I'm going to go through each one of them briefly and sort of outline how and why these can lead to self-sabotage. So, fight, flight, or freeze. Let's start with fight. This is the classic battle mentality that everyone thinks losing weight, oh, I'm fighting my urges, I'm fighting my hunger, I'm fighting my cravings, I'm fighting my appetite. This mentality leaves you exhausted and burned out. Now, I've often likened this, if you check out my book, The Anti-Diet Approach to Weight Loss and Weight Control, we'll put this up on the screen for you. I talk about the proper self-nurturing mindset to successful weight loss and physique transformation. But the common one is the fight battle mentality. And the example I always use is, imagine a boxer who goes 15 rounds in a fight. How does he feel after that fight? Beaten, battered, bruised. It doesn't matter if he wins or he loses. The recovery and recuperation from being in that battle can take months and months and months. And this is the same idea of why the fight mentality eventually leads to self-sabotage, because it just leaves you exhausted and burned out from always fighting cravings, fighting hunger, fighting eating right, fighting social events, things like that. So that's one. Next is the flight response. We've all heard of fight and flight response, and adrenaline, etc., etc. These aren't responses, these are reactions. So the flight, that leads to the screw it mindset, and I've done previous videos on that. You can look them up. Maybe we can post a link up here. But the screw it mindset is because you run away from what you need to do because it just feels like too much pressure to stick to it. But where is that pressure coming from? It's coming from inside your own head, more than likely. You have the tools to do what you need to do, but for whatever reason, you've reacted with a flight response, and that leads to the run away from what you need to do, and then that leads to the surrendering it all and giving up and saying screw it. Now, the one that most people don't consider is the freeze mindset, or the freeze reaction. So fight, flight, or freeze. And freeze is also really, really common. As a matter of fact, it can be the result of fight and flight as well. So the freeze response is when you start considering so much stuff in your own head, information, application, this person's doing it this way, this person says to do this. You've got all these opinions bouncing around in your own head that you end up doing nothing. Nothing at all beyond the mere idea of getting started. And I can't tell you, throughout my 5 decades of coaching, I can't tell you how many people have started with me because they wanted to dive into making the commitment to one-on-one coaching, but they can't get beyond the mere idea of getting started in their own head because they've created the freeze reaction to everything once they get their protocol. I assign them their diet strategy, I assign them their workouts, and then beyond that initial wanting to get started, they end up reacting with a freeze response. So, which one of these, fight, flight, or freeze, best describes your previous sabotaging events to your attempts at weight loss and weight control, physique transformation, etc.? Maybe you relate to all three of these self-sabotages and reactions. Keep in mind that overwhelm leads to fight, flight, or freeze reactions, not responses, and these are stress induced. These are stressed reactions. These are not self engaging responses that keep you involved in the process. So the thought of overwhelm, that can lead to procrastination. And a lot of the times people, you get down on yourself for procrastinating, but you don't investigate the procrastination deep enough. Procrastination can actually be a form of self-protection. And the lesson there is you just aren't ready yet to begin what you need to do. So you keep putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. That can be a lot like the freeze response, but usually it's an indicator to protect yourself that you know you're going to quit, so you're not going to begin to get started to begin with. And that's something to look out for as well. And keep in mind, like I said, fight, flight, or freeze, these are stress reactions to what's in front of you in terms of what you have to do. And focusing too much on the end result and the goal down the road can actually begin this self-sabotaging process as well. So what you want to acknowledge and understand and internalize is that you cannot force yourself into compliance. Feeling backed into a corner in your own mind, that doesn't motivate you. It only triggers the fight, flight, or freeze reaction. And of course, that leads to self-sabotage and failing or flailing at your weight loss physique transformation attempts. So that's a brief outline of the common saboteurs sort of put into an element of the three most common that I tend to see in terms of a reaction mode that ends up sabotaging your efforts at weight control. So that's it. Fight, flight, or freeze. Which one best describes you? Think about it, and then think about how you can change that. This is often how and why coaching makes the difference when people aren't left on their own to follow a diet or follow a training program. They actually have someone to be accountable to who can guide them and direct them and support them to get beyond fight, flight, or freeze reactions so that things don't seem so overwhelming. So was this short video helpful? I hope so. If it was, by all means, please leave a comment and like and subscribe and all that good stuff. But this is a gut reaction to your transformation efforts that lead to self-sabotage. Hopefully it helped you out. I will see you all in the next video.